I just want to thank you all for being a part yet again for another time of Bible study and prayer. What I'm enjoying about this study through the book of Ephesians is that we've taken our time to go through the grace aspect. And now we're on the tail end of the book, which is talking about our response, our application to all the grace that God has given to us. And today we're dealing with relationships. Oh boy. And so the text and the scriptures that we're looking at are typically verses that I would read if I were to officiate a wedding. And I'll let you all in on a tiny secret. I look at weddings the same way people look at Ashley and I as we're about to have a child. Like, using Ashley and I, not using people's weddings, but we're so excited. We, just get excited about every little thing our child is doing in the womb. It's embarrassing, y'all. I have ultrasound pictures. I have a couple right here. I've got some hidden in that bookcase back there. I just am taking all the pictures. And so for those who have had children, they're looking at us like, oh, I'm so happy. But or people with newborns, they're saying, oh, okay, all right. Okay, you guys must not like sleep. All right. And of course people are genuinely happy, but if you've gone through it, you know that there are challenges associated with it. And same thing is true with marriage. Like, I'm standing up there at the altar and I'm hearing all these vows that people are gonna, like, I promise there will never, ever, 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 ever be a day that you'll ever be sad with me because my love. And I'm just like, oh boy, y'all just don't, no, just you wait. And so these scriptures that I'm about to read help to give a great balance to relationships. And quite honestly, this week's affirmation is, I will grow in my ability to be selfless in my love towards others, but not at the expense of self-neglect. Hear me when I say, I will grow in my ability to be selfless in my love toward others, but not at the expense of self-neglect. And that, I believe, is the caveat. That's the nuance that, how do I grow in working out of my own selfishness, wanting my way, wanting to do things on my terms, wanting to control the relationship, the outcome, how people respond when I show love. But I cannot do that at the expense where I am now forgetting who I am and forgetting what my needs are and forgetting the importance of having that time to refill and to replenish. All right. So we'll look at Ephesians 5, starting at verse 21. And most people start at Ephesians 5:22, where you hear the phrase a lot of times that the woman is to submit, the wife is to submit. And, I've unfortunately have been sent a teaching by a gentleman on the East Coast. And he was talking about, woman, it is your job to submit. And it didn't go well. The internet trolled him. And I thought about how many places are having that type of teaching without starting at verse 21, where it says, and further, submitting to one another. So in relationships, in marriage, this particular setup here, the context here is talking about our relationship with God, the covenant that we have with God, but it's using the illustration of the marriage relationship. And it starts off by saying in verse 21, and further, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. So Christ is the model. Christ is the standard. To God be the glory, especially in the marriage relationship. Our request and our the wisdom to honor each other is not based on whether or not that other person deserves to be honored. Honor is more so about the position, rather it is about, did someone earn it or not? And so if there's a person in authority, a position of authority above you, Regardless as to how you feel about how they're doing, we are to honor. And of course, that doesn't mean to blindly be obedient to things that are illegal, immoral, or unethical, but it does say put your feelings aside and honor the position. But in honoring the position, the response for honor that we all have received is that we need to be people of character to then earn respect. So there are situations where there will be those who you have to honor because of the position. But if you're in a position of authority, if you're in a position of high esteem, then your character in your life garners the respect to where people begin to listen, not because you're in that position, but because they know you're in a high character individual. So it goes on to say, verse 22, for wives, this means submit to your husbands as to the Lord. And so what this does is it gives a ballpark illustration and lesson, no matter what season of life that you're in, what it's saying for wives or for those who aspire to be married. The metric is, how are you submitting, which means coming under the mission, sub, two words, sub meaning under, mit meaning mission. It's saying, wives, you are to come under the mission of your husband. Lord have mercy. I need like another hour. I'm feeling my grace kick in on this one. Your marriage has a purpose. So I would definitely, if you're looking to get married, I want you to answer the question of what is our purpose for being together. If you are married, I want you to go back to or create a purpose, a mission statement for your marriage and say, this is why we exist. Because whenever you lose sight of the purpose, whenever you lose sight of the mission, as Dr. Miles Monroe said, this is where abuse becomes inevitable. It doesn't mean necessarily abuse as in physical abuse or emotional abuse, but what it is saying is that when I lose sight of the mission and vision, abuse of each other's time, not stewarding each moment, will become inevitable. And so for those who are unmarried, a great way, especially I hear this, oh, I want to get married. Okay. Okay. You want to get married. Okay. All right. This is what I want you to do. I want you to write down everything the Lord asked you to do. And then next to it, I want you to write your response time in completing what he asked you to do. Because let me tell you, the Lord is perfect. He ain't got no dirty draws. He ain't going to do things to make you upset. He ain't going to need to ask for forgiveness. He's not going to have his own needs that he has. And he's asking us as a perfect individual to do something. And how are you responding to that? And based off how you're responding to that, it's going to let you know how you're going to give it to that human that you so desire. So it's a great metric. Verse 23. Oh man, Lord have mercy. This, for the first time in our Bible study and prayer, this might be a part one and a part two because I don't want to rush this one. So we're going to talk about husbands. For a husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. He's the savior of his body, the church. As the church submits to Christ, so we saw the responsibility of the church coming under the mission, the wife coming under the mission. So you wives should submit, come under the mission of your husbands in everything. That's why it's important who you marry. This ain't no, oh, I just want somebody to lay up next. No. You're connecting to a mission. You're connecting to a purpose. But watch this again. It's two ways. So submission is a team sport. It's not just the wife, it's also the husband. So husband, when you connect and when you get married to a female, it's your responsibility to come under the mission to serve her. So God is not giving a marriage a mission, a purpose statement, and only the husband has a place of gratification. See, when we are asked in the scriptures to come under the mission of God, yes, it's to serve Christ, but it's also to keep us alive and having a quality life. And Christ submit himself to death, even the cross, so that we could have a better life. So the wife comes up under the mission of the husband. The husband now submits his entire life to the wife. Everything about him now belongs to the wife. And so if there's a gentleman out here who's listening to me and you're thinking about getting married, how much of your life is submitted to Christ currently? How much of your preferences, how much of your decisions, your finances, that's a big one. How much of your money is under the direction of the Lord? Because if you have areas that God can touch and areas that he cannot touch, then what you're saying is that when you're married and even in your marriage, there are areas your wife can touch and there's areas that she cannot touch. And let me tell you, am I going to make it? Yeah, here we go. I'm going to stop at verse 25 and we're just going to have to come back next week. How about that, y'all? We're going to come back next week. All right. Verse 25, for husbands, this means love your wives, just as Christ loved the church. He gave up his life for her to make her holy and clean, washed by cleansing of God's word. That looks to me like a whole bunch of communication. And now, again, going back to this week's affirmation, I will grow in my ability to be selfless in my love towards others, but not at the expense of self-neglect. We're given the model, the standard of Christ. If you all notice him in the Gospels, there were times that he gave out a lot, but then there are times that he withdrew. And we need to do that same type of regimen. In seasons where you're giving out a lot, you need to also have times where you withdraw and allow God to pour back in you. But for the wife, it's important to find out what the mission is of the marriage. For women, for those who are unmarried, find out what God's mission is for you, and let's commit to doing that and watch your attitude in doing that. Husbands, your job is to surrender your whole life, everything, for scrutiny to your wife.